Hey everybody, welcome back to Young Engineers of Today. I hope you had a good couple of days and I hope you're ready to continue with cybersecurity because that's what we're going to be doing. Last we left off, we started to get into the actual cybersecurity part of the presentation. So I'm actually just, by way of review, basically, I'm going to go over the last couple of things we did before and then I'm going to just basically start over at cybersecurity all over again. So we talked about ping, which is a way for a computer, a host, a node, to test the reachability of another node by measuring the round-trip time for messages sent from, the originating node to the destination node and then back to the originating node. It's a round-trip journey. So ping is always measured in milliseconds. Since it's a round-trip journey and it's measured in time, a lower number is better. You generally want a ping of a lower number. That just means that the message traveled more quickly, or you are closer to your destination, whatever the case may be. But both of those are good. Both of those mean less latency and things like that. You can ping through the console window or the terminal of your operating system of choice by just using the ping command and then putting an IP after the space. An IP address, not just the letters IP. It's not going to mean anything, but you need to put an actual IP address. You can also put web addresses because that's one of the nice things about the DNS, the domain name service, is you can put in a web address and it will return an IP for your ping command. So you can ping google.com and the DNS will, your local DNS will return the ping, the IP address, and that will be slotted into ping appropriately, and then you'll be pinging google.com, like the nearest server for it. You can ping yourself by typing 127.0.0.1. That always just represents like your own home computer. You can ping your router. And you can basically ping anything that you have the IP address for. You can ping a friend's computer if you have the IP address for it. You can ping a computer at school if you have the IP address for it. You can ping whatever. You can ping a random IP address. I don't recommend doing these things necessarily because this sort of stuff can be tracked by certain systems. Certain systems will prevent you from being able to do it. Certain systems will keep track of who does it and report to somebody. So if you're, poking around on a computer, you probably shouldn't be. They'll get a report of an IP address pinging them, and it will be your IP address. So, generally, pinging is harmless in and of itself. It's just you want to be careful about what exactly you're doing, because if anybody's listening to those pings, then you've given them your IP address. So, just keep that in mind. Anyway, cybersecurity. So cyberspace is a term used to refer to items within the communication network. For example, a website, an email, or an online game all exist in cyberspace. It is the flow of digital information across interconnected computers. That is to say, it doesn't exist in a physical sense. The servers that host the various pages of the internet and things like that, those aren't cyberspace themselves. It's the data that exists on them and the data that flows between wires. It is the connection right now between you and I that that is allowing me to talk to you. It is that flow of data that exists somewhere on the internet. That is cyberspace. It's very strange to be talking about something that actually has no physicality, yet affects our lives in so profound a way. Everything we do on a daily basis is affected in some sense or another by cyberspace. Really and truly, you pull up your phone and get a map of the nearby traffic to determine whether or not you're going to be taking a certain route to school or work or whatever. Cyberspace is affecting your life. You check on Facebook and have a conversation with somebody, or you see some information on there. Cyberspace is affecting your life. You get an email about something. Cyberspace is affecting your life. And a lot of people have come to depend on it. Here's this, yeah. Cyberspace is the place where a telephone conversation appears to occur, not inside your actual phone, which is the plastic device on your desk, not inside the other person's phone in some other city, but rather the place between the phones. That is cyberspace. There is still no substance to cyberspace, nothing you can handle. It has a strange kind of physicality now. It makes good sense today to talk of cyberspace as a place all its own, which is true, you know. And then we talked about the layers of cyberspace. Well, there's the physical layer, the logical layer, and the social layer, which have some sub-layers to them or components. You got the physical layer, which is the geographic components, literally the globe, and the physical network components, which are the servers and wires and links and all the kinds of stuff that make up the the storage and transmission of the internet that exist on the globe in specific places because they need to exist there because of the globe, like landing stations and server farms and things like that. Then you got the logical layer, which is the logical network components that exist on top of the physical network components, where you decide to host certain things, where Amazon decides to host their web services, their cloud services, where Google decides to place servers based on how they want to handle traffic the best, things like that. Then you've got, on top of the logical layer, you've got the social layer, which involves regular real-life persona components, you, your friends, your parents, your family, the people you know at school, the people you meet throughout your life, where they specifically exist, where they connect to the internet, things like that. But more to the point, they themselves make up the persona components. And you got the cyber persona components, and I spent some time talking about this on Monday. You act differently online than you do in person. It may not be all the time, but there are certain aspects of your personality which show online which do not show in person, and vice versa, which show in person do not show online. A lot of that just comes down to the difference in interactions online. Things are different online, and so as such you treat it as a different thing. Now, we talked about this. Cyberspace and its underlying infrastructure are vulnerable to a wide range of risk stemming from both physical and cyber threats and hazards. It's particularly difficult to secure due to a number of factors. One is the ability of malicious actors to operate from anywhere in the world. Like we were saying before, if you're trying to defend a building, it's easy enough to do. If you're just trying to defend a building, let's say in Kansas, you're not going to worry about people from Australia necessarily, unless they're somewhere near Kansas, but they're not going to be able to sit in Australia and mess with your building because, there aren't sticks that long that exist, essentially. So, you don't generally have to worry about that. You have to worry about things that are within your physical proximity, because those are the people who are going to be able to mess physically with your building and things like that. But that's not the case with cyber attacks and cybersecurity and cyberspace and things like that. You could have a server farm sitting in Kansas and somebody in Australia or somebody in, Oceania or India or Russia or the Netherlands or Greenland or Brazil or something like that can mess with your servers. It can literally come from anywhere. And that's something that, that you always have to be aware of. It also becomes difficult because the linkages between cyberspace and physical systems means that there are multiple points of entry. And affecting things in cyberspace can affect things in the physical world as well. So you want to be sure that you've got like some sort of fail-safe when the cyberspace item is compromised so that the physical item isn't affected by it. So there are a lot of home thermostats coming out, like Nest and others that I can't think of right now. But essentially, one of the things they do is they connect to your home Wi-Fi. And so you can use something like a smartphone app to change the temperature in your house, and the smartphone app also keeps track of, the local weather and the temperature inside of the house on a daily basis, and generates trends and tries to change tries to guess what the thermostat should be without you ever having to change it, tries to anticipate when you change the thermostat generally each day and change it then at that time without you having to tell it to. Tries to anticipate when there's movement in the house and stuff like that, so it can turn down the temperature, like when it's nighttime, or turn down the AC or turn down the heat when there's nobody in the house, that kind of thing. Like if everybody's out to work, it'll try and compensate for that. They've gotten a lot smarter. And one of the major advantages is you can use this smartphone app and you can send a message back to your thermostat at home to change the temperature in anticipation of your arrival home. However, the problem with this is somebody else can figure out the address of your thermostat. They can, do all sorts of things. They can crank up the AC to max power while you're at work each day. So, at the end of the month, you have a $400 power bill. They can have it report incorrect, Oh yeah, the Honeywell ones. Well, those are fairly common, especially because they're a decently new design. Digital thermostats are becoming more and more popular, especially because they have so much versatility compared to analog thermostats. But you move into an apartment, when you move into your own place, you're probably going to see an analog thermostat. Chances are. But anyway, there's just any number of things they can do to mess with it. They can have it report incorrect temperatures on the inside. They can have it change its temperature at will and ignore user input. So your place is always at a nice frosty 54 degrees, despite what time of the year it is. And they could burn out your AC unit by doing that. They could burn out your fans by constantly running them, things like that. And that's just the thermostat in your house. When you think of things that could potentially be compromised and a problem when they're compromised, that's pretty low on the list. It's like, oh no, they got into my thermostat, but lo and behold, they can, mess with things. And this is not meant to be like, oh, I should be worried about this stuff. This is just meant to be like, there are difficulties with this, and how do you set up fail safes with that? How do you ensure that somebody can't just walk up to your thermostat and get its IP address and then store it in their phone for later, and later on when they're out doing other things, they can pull up the app for your thermostat, plug it in, and mess around with it, that kind of thing. So there's always that sort of interaction between the real world and and cyberspace that people need to be aware of, because that's just another doorway for people to do malicious acts. And then there's the difficulty of reducing vulnerabilities and consequences in complex cyber networks. So the more moving parts you have, the more things you have to protect against, and the harder it can be to anticipate what changing one part can do to the rest of the system. You imagine this, imagine like a simple pulley system. As long as the pulley's okay and as long as the rope is okay, you're fine. So you can do things to protect the pulley, you can, maintain it and stuff like that. You can do things to protect the rope, you can replace it and laminate it, whatever the case may be. But you've got basically, 2 points that can be screwed up. And you can pretty well anticipate what happens. Like if the rope breaks, you know how the pulley system's going to respond. You're just basically going to pull on the broken bit of rope. If the pulley breaks, that you're going to have a hard time turning the pulley because it's broken. Now imagine like a car engine. Something small can break in it. That can affect many different things in the engine. Like the fan belt breaks, so or let's just say the fan belt breaks, so now the fan doesn't turn on anymore. Now the car isn't cooling itself as well. It could be that the fan belt broke because there was a leak in the oil line or the brake fluid line or something like that, and it just dripped onto the belt. And the belt wasn't actually broken; it was just slipping. But because it was old, it could be any number of things. There could be a whole sort of Rube Goldberg effect from one thing breaking that's causing like a cascading effect across other things. It's the same kind of case in cyberspace attacks. You know, you could have a very complex system and one part could break down and the whole thing could just sort of unexpectedly cascade into a major failure. And, you know, you never thought to, who knows, you know, like declare a variable as final in some of your programming because you thought maybe you change it in the future and somebody else changes it to something else by getting in and or you know they point to another value and suddenly everything's broken. Anyway, there was this diagram which we stopped on last time around. This basically lists just all the different possible connections that exist on a network, like all the possible connections that you can have. So you start up here with internet service and then it connects to a modem. And that modem can be connected to a router which provides a firewall, or it can be connected to a separate firewall of its own, and then connected to a router, which, you know, that can be connected to a printer, that can be connected to a universal phone system unit. So you can be connected to a whole bunch of different phones and other internet-enabled things. This isn't actually a universal phone system. But yeah, only plug-in modem, firewall, router, network switches, network printer, VoIP phones, network cameras, and all NAS units. So only. But so from there, you can be connected to different components. The wireless router could be providing internet to, you know, a computer through another wireless PCI card. It could be connected by wire to that wireless router because wireless routers tend to be able to do both. The flash drive that's plugged into your computer, that can be accessed from the internet if that's the case, as well as any hard drives you have connected to it. Your smartphone is going to be connected by Wi-Fi to your router. Any laptops are connected to it. So this is also sort of meant to emphasize that there is a lot of stuff that is exposed to the outside world in case things get compromised. Oh, this is a power system. Duh. Anyway, you know, through internet service, you can even get the flash drives that are hooked up to your computer compromised, as well as any devices that are connected via the wireless network. So it's just something to keep in mind. Again, not to meant to like be like, oh, the world's a scary place, but you want to be cognizant of this kind of stuff. Another thing that is of growing concern to the cyber threat is that to critical infrastructure, which is increasingly subject to sophisticated cyber intrusions that pose new risks. Basically, you know, as our infrastructure depends more and more upon you know, internet-enabled and complex computerized systems in order to regulate themselves without, you know, as much human intervention. That also means that there is a higher possibility for things to fail with a malicious attack. You know, there's more that can go wrong, that sort of thing. Sophisticated cyber actors and nation states exploit vulnerabilities to steal information and money and are developing capabilities to disrupt, destroy, or threaten the delivery of essential services. Yeah, I mean, that is a very real threat that exists and is becoming more and more of a prevalent concern with you know, first world nations around the world. Well, all nations around the world. It's becoming more and more apparent that we need to basically be aware of the vulnerabilities we expose ourselves to by hooking these things up, you know, hooking our power up to the internet, you know, and our water supply and things like that, so we can have control, you know, via we can have remote control of these things. But we also need to be aware of the fact that by doing that, we are making these things vulnerable to any cyberspace threats because they technically become part of, well, cyberspace. Strengthening security and resilience of cyberspace has become an important homeland security mission. This is definitely true. You know, as we begin to better understand what the implications of these actions are uh, and how they can affect us as a nation, we've begun to prioritize more and more the uh, basically safety of our cyberspace systems. So now that we've done that, there is this Cybersecurity Lab. Why is this? This must be, yeah, hold on. There's actually no, hold on. There's no link for that, so. Hmm. All right, yeah. So this is a cybersecurity lab, just a simple little game. You can just use a guest pass in order to play it. Oop. And this is what it initially looks like. Let's see here. Well, we're going to be Watts amp. Watts amp. So here's the first point of entry. If any of your employees download a computer virus or malware or anything like that, it could destroy company files, steal passwords, or email spam to the company's contacts. So you want to make sure that people don't actually download viruses, and that in case they do, they're protected by the antivirus software and things like that that exist on a computer. So let's continue. Okay, so we can upgrade antivirus software. We can, copy backup copies of files in case things get damaged, and we can train the staff to recognize phishing emails and not click on attachments or links in emails from unknown senders. So, you might want to invest in some protection. Wow, and I screwed that up. No one was an infected website. Okay. So now you can play challenges in order to earn more coins, so you can better protect your website. And these are just a whole bunch of different types of challenges, which will also teach you just sort of different computer science, not really concepts, but they get you exposed to these things and thinking like a computer scientist. They've got a scratch-like challenge. Which you can then, again, complete in order to get more stars. There's a password cracking mode. And again, it's just to make sure that, you understand password security. So you can always enter in a good password. See how I entered in password as the password and it was cracked. And again, this is just more to teach you about the idea that you need to also think about what sorts of passwords you're using, because the more unique passwords you have, the more the safer you are. Then we've also got it's referred to as social engineering, but the idea is identifying emails that are from non-legitimate sources, like phishing emails and things like that, in order to get more comfortable with viewing that sort of thing and recognizing that it's something that exists out there in the world, because that is another avenue of hacking. I mean, hacking is essentially part social engineering and part technology. You can just as easily gain sensitive access to some, domain of cybersecurity by simply asking the right people or tricking the right people into giving you that information. And there's no technology involved. It's just understanding people well enough. And then of course, yeah, I know it's not amazing, but it's like Scratch. Anyway, you get the idea with this. You can continue with that if you're so inclined. But the idea is still there. Gain more stars, get more coins, and then you can better defend against cyber attacks. As you can see, we've also seen over time as attacks get more sophisticated, more damage is done. But that's some of this is conjecture as well. I mean, there has been lots of damage that's that's been experienced from cyber attacks. But anyway, so key terms for cybersecurity: malware. Malware is software that harms computers, networks, or people. It includes viruses and worms and ransomware and other computer programs. They tend to their whole entire programs and their whole purpose is to be malicious, hence malware. And yeah, that's sort of a general term for a whole bunch of other things, but like I said, viruses and worms and ransomware and other stuff. Ransomware being programs that will mess with your things and then demand some sort of monetary or otherwise compensation before they are removed. So for example, keylogger malware is a program that records every key struck on a keyboard and then sends that information to an attacker. So now they have, everything that you've typed on your keyboard. Then you got phishing, which is attempting to trick people into revealing sensitive information such as passwords and credit card numbers, often by using emails or fake websites that look like they are from trusted organizations. Just like that little phishing email challenge I went through. That is an example of social engineering, making it look, you can get an email that almost looks legitimate from, your bank or something like that, and it'll say, your password has been compromised. Please click here in order to enter in in order to log in and verify that this is in fact you, and they'll ask you to enter in your old password, which is of course the password they're interested in because they put up a fake bank website, and you're not actually changing your password. You're just giving them your password. And then they'll go, thank you, your password's been changed. And then they will, use that to access your bank account and get your information. Potentially send your money places, things like that. Spam is unsolicited emails sent to many addresses. Spam is usually just annoying, but sometimes it contains harmful content, like, different forms of malware. A virus is a computer program that can copy itself and cause harm in various ways, such as stealing private information or destroying data. Viruses can be pretty nasty. Well, all malware can be pretty nasty, but viruses, yeah, the viruses can sometimes have the ability to, send copies of themselves to, people and things like that. Botnet, multiple computers in a network that are infected with a program that can be controlled remotely. It's just simply a bunch of sort of like zombie computers. The infected computers are usually used to cause damage that couldn't be achieved with a single computer. And this can be related to, overflowing overwhelming a server with network traffic, or, sending in a bunch of requests and causing a server to shut down or something like that. In fact, what I just referred to was an example of a DDoS, or distributed denial of service. A distributed denial of service attack attempts to make an online service like a website unavailable by overwhelming it with a flood of traffic from a team of computers. It can either be coordinated by like-minded people or by somebody who happened to infect a bunch of computers and create their own botnet. So, that's possible too. Stuxnet is a virus that is able to damage physical infrastructure. Because it has, well, I'm not entirely sure where the Stux comes in, but there are real examples of this, viruses that are able to, there was one in particular that is able to mess with centrifuge controls in nuclear reactors and ruin the centrifuges, cause the nuclear reactor to shut down. You have Stuxnet viruses that are able to mess with the logic controllers in factories and break, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of equipment, things like that. Mirai, this is not done, but it's a type of malware that turns devices into bots for DDoS attacks. You can go on down to encryption, which is the process of it's the process of using codes to make readable information unreadable. So encrypted information cannot be read until it's decrypted using a secret key. That's actually a big part of cybersecurity is encryption, because one of the things that encryption is really good at is keeping information safe if you don't have a key. Even PGP, which is referred to as pretty good protection, I believe. It's free. It's available online. You can adapt it to your use, all that good stuff. And the strength of the encryption is such that if someone were to try to brute force it in order to find the key, they wouldn't be able to basically do that before the sun engulfed the Earth, which is not due for another like 5 billion years, something like that. I want to say it's 5 billion. Yeah. So, a long, long time. The encryption in and of itself is strong. The reason why these can be broken is just because the key gets intercepted somewhere in transit. The user inadvertently provides their password, or it's skimmed from somewhere else, whatever the case may be. Somebody who is, performing a malicious cyberspace action, just to be, totally official, a cyber attack, can get passwords that way. And then they can circumvent the whole brute forcing something like even like a PGP key, because they'll have the password, which is all they need. But yes, decrypting things the long way is far too long to be feasible. So that can be a very good way to protect information. And there's firewall. Firewalls are pieces of software designed to block malware from entering protected networks. Basically, it reduces or restricts the number of unknown programs that are entering a network in order to, prevent, basically just prevent malware from doing its thing. Prevent malware from getting on your computer and running whatever routines it has, because it's meant to just basically stop things you don't specifically request to download from actually downloading. But yeah, so let's spend some time looking at the IoT. Well, what is the IoT, you might ask? The IoT stands for the Internet of Things, which is sort of becoming a bit of a buzzword, popular term, whatever you'd prefer to call it. And like it or not, that term is starting to stick. It'll probably be a while before that changes, if it does. I'm personally not a fan of the Internet of Things. It sounds kind of silly, but I get the idea that they're trying to get across, which is that this is not just your regular old computer internet. This is an internet which directly involves all of the physical objects that exist in your house and in your life, interacting and communicating with one another. So the Internet of Things, way back in 1992, is when we first had about 1 million devices connected to the Internet. 1 million devices, which was a big deal at the time, a huge deal at the time. A little bit over 10 years later, that number grew 5 times in size to 0.5 billion. Then in 2009, that was sort of the inception of the idea of the Internet of Things, where everything is sort of connected to the Internet in some way or another. In 2012, you've got 8.7 billion items connected to the Internet. 2013, 11.2 billion. 2014, 14.4 billion. 2015, 18.2 billion. So that is to say, almost 3 devices for each person on the planet. 2016, 22.9 billion. 2017, 28.4 billion. What? Oh, okay. 2018 projected to be 34.8 billion. So, at some point, beyond 2016, this becomes projections. So 2017, they project 24.8. 2018, they project 34.8. 2019, they project 42.1. And by 2020, they project that 50.1 billion items will be connected to the Internet around the world, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, considering we're sitting somewhere around 7 billion people, and many of those people, not all of them, and I hesitate to say most of them at this point, but a lot of them, many, many, many of them, don't have a device that connects to the Internet. So that leaves basically, first world countries with their toothbrushes and fridges and stoves and thermostats and, as far as infrastructure is concerned, traffic lights and street lights and, energy meters and just all of these things all being connected to the Internet. So when we say the Internet of Things, we mean literally the things that you see in everyday life being connected to the Internet. That is the Internet of Things. But yeah, so that's the concept that that exists for that. So from smart devices to connect, or for smart devices to connect to the Internet to send and receive information, they have to go through a series of connections known as layers. These layers are managed by protocols, rules that govern each layer and ensures that the data passing through them remains intact and gets to where they're going. So there's a whole process to sending and receiving data on the Internet for any sort of device that does do this. We're not necessarily just limited to like computers at this point. Anything that does connect to the Internet will have to deal with these protocols. So you got a few different layers here. You've got at the top layer the Internet/cloud layer, and this is where the data usually ends up. The data sent to and from this layer are usually stored in huge data centers. So you're talking about just buildings, air-conditioned buildings filled with tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of servers, all just sort of doing their thing. That would be, like a data center. Then you've got the session/communication layer. This layer manages how applications connect to the Internet. So protocols involved are HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, most widely used protocol to send and receive files and web pages, and HTTPS, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, which is the more secure version of HTTP. Then you've got below that the router and or smart hub, a device that helps multiple smart devices in your home connect to the Internet by creating a hotspot that they can hook onto. Basically allowing, it's their doorway to the Internet in essence. And then you've got the link layer, which is, this layer provides a way for smart physical devices to be sent to the network and thus to the Internet. So you've got, Ethernet, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. So basically how these things connect to the Internet is also a layer. With that though, I'm actually going to call it here because I want to make sure we have enough material for Wednesday, or excuse me, next Monday. So I'm going to go ahead and call it here so we have enough material for next Monday. And we'll do question and answer time and poll questions as well. And if you don't have any questions, you're more than welcome to head out and have a wonderful weekend. For sure.